Hey everyone.
Hey there, folks.
This is AV.
This is Rita.
And you're listening to I Don't Know Her, the podcast where we talk about women and some other folks that you've probably never heard of.
Today you will.
So, I have a story for you. I've kind of given you the rundown, but I'm going to tell it again.
Okay.
So, this weekend, it was like the first nice weekend, right?
Oh, yeah. Sun's out. Tons of people out.
Yes. And I feel like something happens in general anywhere you live, but particularly in the Northwest, that like first real sunny, nice day, everybody and their mother goes out.
Oh, yeah.
Like goes out shopping, goes out to restaurants, goes out drinking, like goes out running. Like they're just, everybody's out. So we decided to be among the crowd.
It's a weekend.
Yeah, so we went out on Friday night to one of our favorite bars, like sort of divey bar. It's like one of those places that belongs on diners, drive-ins, and dives because it's like a dive, but it's really good food.
Yeah.
Made out of like a kitchen that's smaller than the space we recorded. So I always feel bad for the cooks in that place. So we went to the Viking and we realized immediately that we made a grave error. Because the Viking is across the street from the Spokane Arena, which is where...
huge event center.
Yes, huge events. I'm not used to having events. So I just was like, didn't even cross my mind that there was an event. And not only was there an event, it was the state high school basketball tournaments.
And Spokane and basketball, hand in hand, everyone goes crazy over basketball here.
Yeah, people care about basketball. And again, these are the state tournaments for both girls and boys high school. Basketball team. So there were a lot of people there, and that meant there were a lot of people at the Viking. And we happened to go there in between games, which is the worst time because literally everybody's there.
They're looking for a drink.
And we walk in and we're like, holy shit, there's so many people there. And we were looking at leaving, and then some tables opened up and people left for the next game. And so we were like, oh, we'll hang out. And we were around these people, and when I say they were drunk, like that doesn't even come close. It was wild. And these are parents of teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
Who are currently across the street hanging out with their team. And their parents are getting just shit-faced.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like their whole vibe was like not great. In fact, there was a table next to us of, I would say, people in their 50s who were just behaving like 20-something frat boys.
Gross.
It was really bad. It was bad enough that the guy sitting next to us was there with his wife and baby. He got up and went to the bar and asked somebody to kick them out. And the guy did come, like the bartender came over and was like, we've had some complaints about the noise level. Because like I had to yell at Abby, who was sitting across the table from me, because of how loud they were. Needless to say, the room was just full of just drunk assholes. Mm-hmm. And you could just tell the vibe was just like not great.
I know that vibe as having been a bartender. I used to work at, you remember Ramblin' Road? It doesn't exist anymore.
Doesn't exist anymore.
It was right across the street from the soccer arena. So all the parents would come over and just pushy, entitled. They would get sloppy.
It's so sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
So we left early. As soon as we were done eating, we were like, let's get out of here. We're too old for this. Despite the fact that everybody in the room was a good 10 years older than us. They were obviously too old for it too, but that's not how they were behaving. And we left. We were home probably 9:30. Like,
that's early.
It's quite early, right? It's a Friday night. Like we were home. That should give you the context of how fucking wasted these people were. And how early it was. Like, we got there at like 6:20.
Oh my gosh. So they've been drinking all day.
Yeah, clearly just fucking shit-faced. They'd probably been drinking in the parking lot or some shit in between games. So we left. We went home, had our night. The next day, we went to take the dogs for some exercise, and we went to put them in the back of our car, and there was vomit all down the back of our car.
Gross.
And at first, my assumption was, like at first Abby was like, when did this happen? Who did this? And I was like, it had to have happened at the Viking. Like, obviously. It's the only place we were at. Obviously, it didn't happen in our driveway.
You know, it crossed their mind like, did Rita throw up on our car?
Well, because it was right after you had just come in.
Yeah.
And I was like, did she just like vomit on the way into the house?
Oh, God.
And then
no.
And then Abby was like, there's no way. I was like, no, I don't think so. And then I was like, oh, the Viking. We were at the Viking last night. And Abby was like, oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And then she was like, they were intentionally trying to throw up on our Black Lives Matter sticker. I was like, what? No. So then I come around and I'm looking at it. And it's like unmistakable. You can absolutely tell because our car was dirty. So there was handprints in the dirt and they were like framing their body around the sticker. Like nowhere on the whole rest of our car is there a single handprint. It is only there. And you can tell by the trajectory of unfortunately, we're talking about vomit today. The trajectory of the vomit was such that you could tell they were trying to aim.
Yeah.
But they're drunk, so they couldn't.
Yeah.
So they did miss it, but it's like maybe 2 or 3 inches below it, and it goes all the way down to our bumper. Ugh. And then pooled on our bumper. So that was cute. And I was just like, oh my fucking God. On Saturday, after we discovered that, it just put me in like a really shitty headspace. Mm-hmm. It made me just really mad. Like, there's so many layers to that. Like, one, what the fuck is wrong with you?
For starters.
Yeah, to start with, like, what? Mm-hmm. And the second thing is, like, it's like those, like, fuck Joe Biden stuff or, like, let's go Brandon. It's like, how the fuck old are you? First off, nobody's walking around, like, with Biden flags.
I haven't seen a goddamn one. So
yeah, that's your guys' thing. We don't worship the fucking presidents. That's just not a thing we do on the left. They're all like flawed people that we have to like criticize, right?
Yes.
Like, that's not a thing we do. So like, who are you really mad at here? Who are you talking to? Yourselves? We know you don't like him. We also don't.
Yeah.
He hasn't forgiven my fucking student loan debt, bitch. He's on my shit list. So like I don't know who they're talking to, but it's like that's the same mentality of this like I'm trying to vomit on a sticker on someone's car.
And just like the physical like aggression of that.
Yeah. It's so fucking disrespectful.
Yeah.
Like, ugh.
I would never do that.
Of course not.
No.
I wouldn't do that to anyone. And you know the mentality that, like, maybe I would have participated in a fucking prank like that was probably when I was 17. Not a parent of a 17-year-old.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, come on. And it made me realize, like, that is exactly why we've been having so many discipline problems at school. Because those people are the parents of our kids.
Oh, yeah. And then they raise little mini them who act the same way.
Entitled as fuck.
The same way. And do not get in trouble.
So that was already my Saturday morning. So I was like not exactly, you know, in a bad mood, but it was like, it just kind of soured me a little bit.
Yeah, that would sour me too. Especially too, like I care a lot about my car. I don't know if you do.
Yeah, we had to go through a car wash today and it still didn't get it all off. Ugh. And so Abby had to like scrub it off.
That's gross. I just take pride in my possessions that I work hard for. In my car, I work really hard for. If someone did that, it would fuck with me.
Yeah, it really upset me. And then we decided to. There's a friend of a friend who's just new in town, and really likes craft beer. So, Abby had offered to like take him out, show him a bit around the town and stuff like that. So we had gone to a couple of craft beer places and we ended the night at one of our favorite places, which is Community Pint. Shout out. Such a great place. And our friend owns it and we were just getting ready to leave and we were trying to pay and a group of people had just walked in and happened to be getting in line right before us. And they were, you know, trying everything and like not, you know, they were just there for a while. And I started to notice that this guy was like doing weird hand gestures. And I kind of tilted my head and I was like, that's definitely not sign language, but it looks like he's trying to make it sign language. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, like, okay, I'm going to reserve my judgment. Maybe, because I'd also heard him talk, but I was like, well, maybe he's like a person who's had a cochlear implant and they talk sometimes, sign sometimes, so on and so forth. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna like hold off for a second. And then our friend came over with a little handheld payment device, so we were busy paying. But Abby was like, that guy is fucking pretending to be deaf. And I was like, I was wondering, how do you know? She was like, I heard him say that he was. I was like, what?
That he was faking it.
Yeah, because he turned to his friend, and his friend like was like saying something to me. He's like, hey man, don't forget I'm deaf. And then pretended to sign and did all this weird like fake signing stuff.
Who was he pretending to sign to? His friends or to the bartenders?
Both. Yeah. So he's doing that, and then he says, that he's pretending to be deaf, basically, and then he starts barking, like he's a person who's hard of hearing or deaf, and is like making the vocalizations of speech, but you don't have like the speaking part. That's what he was doing.
Oh my God.
But he was literally making it like a dog bark. It was like, honest as shit, some of the most disrespectful, ableist bullshit I have ever seen in my life. And it was happening like so nonchalantly, like it didn't fucking matter. And after the BLM sticker vomit shit, I was like,
You're on a thin fucking thread.
I am over it. I was also like talking about how much I've been working out and like how I'm like doing deadlifts, like 50-pound deadlifts and shit. And it's like, I'm feeling pretty jacked. I'm gonna fucking take this twat. Like, I'm gonna fucking take him down. And then I was like, wait, we're with a new person who doesn't know me from Adam, and like I should probably not embarrass the shit out of him by like trying to pick a fight with this guy. But I was like, I couldn't just like walk away and not let him know that it was wrong. So I just turned to him, and he's like 6 feet tall, but I'm like trying to get in his face.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, you're so fucking disrespectful. And I just like spit it at him. And then I turned around and walked out, and I overheard the woman that was one of the women that was in the group was like, could you just fucking stop it? Yeah. Like clearly embarrassed. And our friend later on told us that the whole rest of the group was like really nice and tipped super well, and that he didn't do shit. And it was clear they were all annoyed with him. I was like, you know what?
Maybe you shouldn't be friends with that person.
That's correct. Like someone who would be willing to do that, and you're like willing to go along with it until someone else, a stranger, points it out. Yeah. That says a lot about your fucking character too.
You're not checking your own friends. Like you need to.
And we've all been in situations, right, where we know our friends have overstepped a line or did something that we would disagree with if it were not our friend. And I have been working really hard at making sure that I do call that out when I see it, or at least call them in, be like, hey, dude, like, that was not cool. Okay. Yeah. And I don't have people in my life who would just generally do that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's been a long time since I've been challenged in that way.
Mine's every goddamn week.
Yeah, but I mean a friend.
Oh, a friend. No.
Yeah, no, strangers are assholes. Mm-hmm. But like I don't have any friends where I've had to be like, ooh, dude, that was not cool. Don't say or do such and such.
Yeah, I haven't had to say that in a while.
The last time I remember really calling somebody in was a person who's not really a friend, they're an acquaintance, and they are a lesbian, and they're in a lesbian marriage. And it was right around the time that George Floyd died, and the marches were happening like every day or every couple of days. And she had brought a sign that said like Black Lives Matter. And then after the march, took a photo like with the sign in front of her and her wife, and they were kissing. And I was like, okay.
Problematic.
Let's chat. Like, I understand that what you're trying to say is like you felt a lot of love in that moment where everybody's coming together in solidarity. Like I totally get it, but it's inappropriate. It is inappropriate, and it centers you and your whiteness and your gayness over Black lives, which is what you're supposed to be there for. And she was really super receptive and was like, I totally get what you're saying. I'm taking the post down, but before I do that, do you mind if I quote you and like tell people why?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, that's totally fine. And then like there were people in her comments that were like, you should never take it down though. That's dumb. I was just like, okay. That's the last time I recalled saying it to somebody I know.
Yeah. I think I remember that.
What about you? Has there been a time where you've had to like call a person out? Stranger or friend alike?
Stranger or friend alike. I called a regular out one time because loyal fucking regular, really good guy, liked him a lot. He came in, saw me 3 times a week, guaranteed. Knew his family, his wife, knew his story up and down. And he was talking about a beer bar, and he's like, I just don't like going there anymore. And I was like, why? He goes, oh, they got all this like gay shit up on the walls and like bartenders that look like freaking lumberjack lesbians and rainbow flags. And I said, is there something wrong with that? And he goes, oh, it's just, they can do what they want to do. I just don't want to see it. And I was like, I don't think they want to see you either. And I said, no, I don't want to see you either. I was like, that is fucked up. I was like, do you know that I'm queer? And he was like, no. And I was like, yeah. That was super fucking offensive. And I was like, lumberjack lesbians? What the fuck are you talking about? And he was like, well, just they're like hiring girls that are like all butchy looking. And I was like, you go. I said, I bought your beer. Bye.
I mean, like, what fucking year do you live in? Like, it's so fucking inappropriate.
That really, I was furious.
You know what? Speaking of that almost exact same conversation, when we went to, so I mentioned we went to Whistlepunk, which is my favorite brewery in town.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was like, the car had been vomited on that. This was the beginning of our time. So we went to Whistlepunk first and we were leaving. And we had told Chris, the bartender, about the vomit situation. And he goes, oh my God, I just had a person in from the tournament, like 2 guys that were they were strangers that just happened to sit next to each other on the bar. And one guy was like, oh man, like these trans athletes, they're just men trying to get into women's locker rooms. And like, Chris was like, you don't know what you're fucking talking about. Get the fuck out. And like the guy next to him, like you could tell he was like trying to find white solidarity with this other man. And the other man was like,
fuck you, dude.
The other man was like, well, because they had an argument over like whether or not he watched Fox News. Chris and this guy did. And then the other guy was like, okay, so when you do watch news, what do you watch? And the guy was like, Fox News. He goes, yep, that's what I thought. And then they just turned and he said something like, that's why you're misinformed. And then Chris was like, I'm buying your beer.
Oh my God.
But it was like that I don't know what is going on right now where like people feel the license to just be like fucking assholes.
Yeah. It's different when there's that comfortability though, because they think they can.
Oh yeah,
I can say it in front of this person because I've known them for so long, and yeah.
Yeah, there's like, I think especially that white solidarity bullshit happens so often. Like, oh, you look like me, and we're from the same, whatever, age, location, whatnot, and I'm going to say a thing that I assume you're gonna feel the same way as I do.
Well, I'm sorry that happened.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's shitty.
Yeah, it was just like, it just reminded me that the world is like outside of my bubble. It's just pretty shitty.
Yeah, that's why we keep a pretty tight bubble.
Yeah, and I don't venture out very far from my regular places, and so going to the Viking was different for me, and I didn't care for that.
Nope, I wouldn't either.
So,
alrighty.
You have a person today.
I do have a person.
Who is your person?
Alrighty. Have you ever heard of Viola Smith?
I don't think so.
Pioneering swing and big band drummer. Also,
oh, definitely not.
The fastest girl drummer in the world.
How do you even quantify that?
Well, Viola was born in 1912, so it's going to show you what era she's part of. So that's why they probably gave her that nickname.
Well, as soon as you said big band, I was like, oh, okay. That's going to be like the 20s and 30s.
She was born November 29th, 1912, in Mount Calvary, Wisconsin. Did I do that right? No.
I don't know. That's a Mahler question.
Oh, okay. Oh, gosh. Yes.
Yeah. She's from the heart of Wisconsin. Wisconsin.
Her family was quite large. She was one of 8 girls.
Oh, wow.
A lot of daughters. And 2 boys.
That would have been a whole wild ride to be a part of.
So big. Such a big family. She and her siblings were very close. She described it that they rarely fought, and they were actually quite a peaceful family. They were just like really chill, which I cannot imagine having that many kids and not fighting.
Yeah, I think that's a lie.
Even though her family life was good, Viola said that she, to quote, planned her escape when she knew where she was.
I mean, I did too. I was like, get me the fuck out.
That reminded me of you.
Yeah, I was literally just talking about that yesterday, about like how, everybody thinks that they were different in high school or whatever. But like, there were 48 students in my entire class. Or sorry, 45. There were 150 in the whole high school.
Too small.
There was nobody like me.
Yeah,
I didn't have a whole lot of places to turn to. So, yeah.
Yes.
I wanted to get out.
Her father ran a tavern / music hall, and he made sure that all of his kids dabbled in music. He required that each of the children learn how to play the piano, and then they got to choose an instrument that they could like further their musical abilities with.
Their own pick.
Viola said that in their house they had, because there were so many kids, they had 3 pianos.
3
pianos and an organ in the house.
Pianos are really expensive.
Yeah, they are. Her parents seem kind of well off.
Well, they had to be able to have that many pianos and that many children, to be honest.
Exactly.
Children are expensive.
And she said something about one time, she said something about maids. Not maid. They had maids.
Maids, plural, yeah. Also, you would need maids, plural, if you had 10 children.
Right? I would. If I had the money.
Yeah, exactly. Help me.
Most of her sisters had chosen brass instruments and string instruments. As the youngest, she said there was nothing left to choose, so they were like, here's the drums. And she's like, okay.
I mean, do you remember when everybody would fight over getting to play the drums in like 5th grade band?
No.
Oh, you probably didn't have that. It's a public school thing.
Okay. Everyone wanted to play the drums?
Oh, yeah. And they only let like 3 people do it.
Oh, my goodness.
So, the rest of us were like, okay, saxophone, flute.
Here's the piccolo.
Trumpet.
So she started to learn to play when she was about 12. She said luckily she had a cousin who lived nearby who was a commercial drummer, and he was able to like get her started, teach her the basics. As the kids got older, their father had them practicing at least 2 hours daily. Also, he was like, got to keep your kids busy is what he said. So he's like, music, like, here you go, stay busy. Viola said they didn't mind because that meant that they didn't have to like help around the house. Like the dad would just leave them alone. If they did their practicing, it was like smooth sailing. As they got better, their father decided to form them into a group called the Schmitz Sisters Family Orchestra, which she had a name change. So that's why her name is Viola Smith. She took the Schmitz, changed it to Smith.
I see. So like her actual name was Viola Schmidt.
Schmitz. Yeah.
Or Schmitz or Schmidt?
Schmitz with a Z.
Oh. It's not even what I was picturing in my mind.
Schmitz. Schmitz.
That's a cool name, actually.
It's really pretty.
I mean, to end in a Z, that's cool.
Her brothers also wanted to be in the group. They were like, can we be in this group? And the dad was like, no. Because he was like, he thought it'd be cooler, like, if it was 8 girls, like, he could market that a lot better. Viola said that her brothers got real pissed and they'd stopped playing music altogether. Like, they were just like, didn't want to do it anymore.
Whoa.
I know. And I was like, maybe some hard feelings there? Question mark. I literally have that in my notes.
Yeah. Yeah. And also it's like, is that because you're boys and you think you should get everything?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Their father started trying to get them gigs. He booked them in theaters during school vacation time. They played at weddings. They would play at state fairs. Like it sounds like he was just like, hey, here's my daughters. Look how cute they are. She was only about 14 or 15 at this time when she began getting paid. Like they were getting paid for shows.
Oh, that's nice.
So basically
like
a
paid
professional.
gigs.
Yeah. Which is probably pretty fun for a 15-year-old. Like, hey, I'm getting paid.
I'm in a band.
I'm
paid.
the drummer.
I'm the drummer.
I'd date her. As they gained more and more attention, they would frequently travel to Chicago to play radio shows. Like they would bring people on as like little numbers. Here's the Schmitz Family Girls.
Yeah.
Viola said they got their big break by being featured on the Major Bowes Amateur Hour radio show. And this was in 1930. And on the show, they won a talent contest, and the contest gave them 1 year's sponsorship for a national tour. And they were featured as an all-girl review.
That's a
Pretty
big deal.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be like, oh, they got $500.
They got popcorn.
But hey, like a review for a whole year.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And sponsored. So the sisters traveled and played on weekends and all through the summer months. Their father really did not want them to miss school.
Well, that's good.
Yes. Because, some people would be like, fuck school.
Yeah.
Here we go. Viola said that they all really did love it. Playing as a family, they enjoyed it. She said her and her sisters had a blast. They loved that their father managed them. He was pretty strict, but also she said he was a good father, a good manager. She actually credits him for her entire career. She said it wouldn't be possible at all without his support and direction.
That's like the opposite of the showbiz parent that leeches off their children.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about you, the Calkins.
Let me live through you.
Yeah, and they Britney Spears' dad.
That's the age-old story of
Yeah.
parents using their kids to make money and live vicariously through them.
Yeah, and take all their fucking
And
shit
money.
from them.
Oh.
Yeah, isn't that also what happened to one of the Coreys in the 80s?
I think so.
He
Didn't he try to get emancipated or something?
Well, and I don't.
Drew
I think
Barrymore
one
did
of
the same
them.
thing?
Yeah, Drew Barrymore did, but there was. Yeah, I think it was one of the Coreys who had realized when they turned 21, when they were supposed to have access to all their stuff, that there was nothing
gone.
there.
Yeah.
And they had been the largest, one of the biggest movie stars in the world.
Could you imagine?
No, I
All
could
your
not.
hard work just gone.
Millions of dollars just wiped out by my parents. What do you do? Where do you go after that?
Well, her father didn't do that. While they traveled to different theaters and venues, Viola would sit and learn from the other orchestra drummers. She'd come over and be like, hey, can you teach me something? Teach me a new lick or teach me how to do this. So she said she was always studying, learning, trying to add more to her repertoire. She pretty much tried to do that with all her spare time. And especially when they're traveling, there's downtime between shows and stuff.
Yeah.
After high school, she got a scholarship to Juilliard.
Wow.
Because she had some talent.
Yeah, that's you can't get into Juilliard unless you're incredibly talented. So so you auditioned for Juilliard. So did she audition as a drummer?
I think I actually didn't find any information that said that she auditioned as a drummer, but when she did go to Juilliard, she got the scholarship out of high school. So I wonder if they encouraged her to go audition for this. But where she was there, she studied timpani.
Oh yeah,
which is a big giant ass drum.
Yeah, they make such a beautiful sound.
I didn't know you had to study that.
Well, at Juilliard, it's a music school, so you pick your this is the instrument that I'm going towards, whether it's vocal.
This is my thing.
Yeah. So, I didn't know that you could just specialize in one kind of drum, but I guess you can.
Yeah. I was because obviously Nick is a musician, and I was like, hey, you study timpani? Do people have to study that? It's a drum. And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, that's so fucking hard to play. I was like, really?
I don't know.
Know.
I don't know much about the timpani. It's pretty sounding.
It's really big. That's all I know.
Yeah, our school had really beautiful timpanis when I was in high school, and they were copper.
Oh, I've seen those.
Oh,
so beautiful.
So beautiful. That was my favorite thing about the Christmas concerts, because they would have all the lights like dimmed and like glowy.
And then one person's standing there with the sticks in their hand up in the
yes,
air.
and it would go and it would like glint off the copper. It was so pretty.
It was pretty. She upped her game too, making her drum kit made of 12 pieces, which not a lot of people were doing at that time. Way more pieces than drummers were having at that time.
Yeah, the average is like six,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay.
So yeah, 12 pieces is not something that everybody was doing at that time.
Well, I don't even think now.
No, like not a lot of people do that. She also made herself stick out by positioning 2 bass drums to the side of each of her shoulders. So they're like up and tilted so that the skins are facing her shoulders.
So how does she play them?
I'm going to show you.
Ooh.
She thought it would be something like truly unique for like a female drummer to execute. She saw this one guy. She'd gone to a show and he had his drum, but he had just had it tilted slightly a little bit higher. And she's like, I can go higher than that. I can make them real high. So she did. As time went by, though, her older sisters started getting married. And they started like, it was either marriage or the band.
Or the band, yeah.
So, of course, as they got married, they all started dropping off. They're all older than her, too. So they all started leaving.
That's right. She's the youngest,
She's
right?
the youngest. And she didn't want to stop playing. She said she truly loved traveling, obviously because she wanted to get out of her hometown. And she loved playing in the band. Eventually, it came down to only one of her sisters and Viola that was left. So they auditioned and added other female musicians. And they formed a different group called the Coquettes in 1938.
Okay, so I feel like I actually have heard of that band because I talked about that trombonist, Melba Liston.
Yeah.
And the Coquettes were mentioned in my research.
Okay. Yeah, they were all women.
Mm-hmm. And that's what made Melba different, because all of the other female trombonists in the big band era were in all female bands.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the only one who was in
with men.
Male. It was all men in her.
That's crazy that they had to separate it like that. I'm going to share a clip of Viola playing with the Coquettes. And I think once you see her face, you'll kind of know exactly what I'm talking about, of how much she loved playing the drums. Also, you'll be able to see those double basses.
Oh, I'm looking forward to the double bass drums.
So how much fun does she look like she's having?
She's having an incredible amount of fun, and she's like so intense.
Yeah.
She's when you said 12 pieces, I was like not really sure what to expect. But there's like a xylophone. There I couldn't quite tell actually what was in the center of her drum set. So there's like snares or whatever, but it looks like four.
They're bells.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
they're bells. And then there's timpanis on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And then the bass drums that Rita was talking about that are up above. It's like, I don't even know how to describe it.
They're huge.
They're huge. And they're up by her head on both sides.
She's basically like helicoptering her hands while keeping the tempo and also hitting these bass drums the side of her. She's also standing.
Yeah, she's standing like for most of it because she has to be able to reach so many items.
Yeah, she actually, a lot of her playing, she had a hard time sitting still. So she would like want to get up.
Well, I could imagine. I mean, like she's like really going at it. It's not like she's just playing like a standard
hi-hat.
Yeah. Doom, doom. That's not what she's doing here. She's like everything is like going at once.
Yeah, and her tempo is just so strong and even. And she liked to do a real crashy, like thumpy tempo too.
Yeah.
Also, the rest of the band, amazing.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like the whole, you can tell that they're doing showmanship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like at one point, that's why I was like, what is that? Like it looked like all of, I think it was the brass section had like metal bowls, or maybe they're hats.
They were muters.
Oh, but they were like moving them in choreography.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really interesting. Like you could tell there was choreography. Also, even while she was playing, this was noticeable to me, is that like I've seen big bands with male drummers, and they're always like, and they've got their eyebrows knitted together, and they're sweating, and they're like making little like faces, and she's just smiling the whole time.
She has the biggest shit-eating grin on her face.
But I think that's also
smiling.
because they're required to, because they're
Oh, you
women.
think so?
Oh, absolutely. That was one thing that Melba said, that's one of the reasons why she didn't want to be in a all-female band. She was like, I'm not a pretty plaything.
Oof.
I'm a musician. And so like that was one of the things about being in an all-female band. You're pretty and smiley.
I like how aggressive she plays.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that like it doesn't, I think you can see that there's genuine joy in her playing and in her like the way that she looks, but there's also like I think a layer of that
having to do the job.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it is like a dance move. Like, think about, figure skaters. Incredibly athletic, but they always have to have a smile on their face, or they get points taken away.
That's weird.
Oh, it's totally weird.
That's
it has
weird.
nothing to do with your like ability to do a jump.
No.
but they have to have smiles.
Oh, you did
on
a
their
triple
face.
axel, but you didn't smile.
Yep. I mean, Tanya Harding literally got like hammered for her facial expressions back in the day.
That's dumb.
I don't know why I talked about figure skating. I just watched Jonathan Van Ness's like Getting Curious.
Loves it.
And like the figure skating episode.
So good.
Because I was like super into figure skating when I was a kid.
Totally.
I mean, who wasn't?
So the Coquettes were very successful. They played a ton of music halls. They were on TV. And
yeah, what show was that? Do you know?
That show, I'm not sure.
Okay.
They were also featured in a few movies. So there was one called, like, Hey, the Coeds Are Here, which sounds like a porn,
It
honestly.
Does. I was just thinking that, like, oh, were they the music for the porn?
So it's kind of like a high school setting, college maybe.
Yeah.
Black and white movie, and there's a lot of musical numbers. And a lot of it starts with her starting the drums, and then the camera will pan backwards and then go into like a scene. So she's like in a band for the school. So she's featured in that movie and a couple other ones.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Viola stayed with the band for about 3 to 4 years till her last bandmate sister. Her sister was the one on the upright bass. That's her sister Mildred. Her sister Mildred got married and left. And she said she was like not very sad about it because she felt as long as like one more sister was still there, she still had to do something with that sister. So now that she was gone, she was kind of free to like spread her wings,
do her own thing.
Do her own thing.
Yeah.
So once her sister left, Viola decided to move to New York. She'd always wanted to go there. Obviously, the music scene's banging over there, big city. She just felt like it was where she wanted to be.
Yeah, especially jazz and big band.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Chicago, New York, Detroit.
Mm-hmm. When she got to New York, she didn't get gigs right away. Even though she was an accomplished drummer, most places didn't hire women at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only due to World War II starting, where a lot of the men were leaving to go overseas. Mm-hmm.
It is like the story of like women like in this country in every fucking aspect.
That's the only way that they would have room.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that is to me that is the marker of the beginning of the second wave of the feminist movement.
She said like 52nd Street was like the place to be for music. It was better known as Swing Street. I think I've heard of that before.
Yeah, I think I have too.
Tons of clubs, bars, music halls. a lot of famous musicians bouncing around from club to club. I was watching this interview. She has this really funny story of going to a packed club. She was going to go see Billie Holiday.
Oh.
And it's the first time she wants to, like, is going to go see her. And the club is so packed that the guy is like, I'm going to have to put you, like, right next to the stage. And she was like, oh, cool. But then she said it was a table that was literally smashed up against the stage. And it was a raised stage. So Billie Holiday comes out and she's, like, looking directly at her ankles because she's up above.
Oh, yeah. So she can't, like, she would have to, like, crane her neck back.
So she's, like, trying to, crane her head back and look up. And she said Billie Holiday's dress and, like, the tulle is, like, in her face. So she's, like, trying to listen. She's, like, batting her dress like a cat because she's, like, she said my hair was done, like, really nice and I was, like, trying to look good for the show. She's, like, her dress was, like, dragging around my coiffed hair. She's, like, it was just a funny thing. And she's, like, but it was an amazing show. She sounded amazing. But she's, like, all I remember is just, like, trying to get her skirt, like, out of my face.
That's really funny. That imagery is great.
Viola got herself signed up with a musicians union. I didn't know that they had to do that.
Well, they don't have to, but it's always a good idea because then when you're a union musician, if there's a spot open somewhere, then you'll get a job.
Yes.
It's like, in LA especially.
Yeah. She was saying if you want to play professionally, it's a good way not to get screwed.
Absolutely. You have to, because you get paid union wages.
Always. She joined an all-female jazz trio. One evening when she was playing with her group, a drummer who played for Radio City Music Hall named Billy Gladstone listened to her play. And once her show was done, this kind of creeped me out. He invited her to come to Radio City Music Hall so he could show her a few tricks, is what he said. And I was like, I don't know if I would, I don't know if I would go. She went. Luckily, it wasn't
It wasn't creepy?
It wasn't creepy. She began to take lessons from him. And he even gifted her a drum that he made himself. And it was a drum that he ended up only making 7 of them and gave them to 7 other drummers. And he is actually he's a famous jazz drummer, band leader, but he's also invented a lot of musical instruments. So he was also...
like pretty prolific, yeah.
Yeah.
I recognized his name, but I was like, maybe I don't. But I think I actually do recognize his name.
He also invented like a couple new techniques of like how to roll on a snare and things like that. So a lot of stuff's like named after him.
Yeah, I think that's why I know who he is. But I didn't know who he was, but I had like a vague recollection.
And even though she was working, Viola was ticked that the only reason that female musicians were getting gigs is because all the guys were gone.
And it's novelty.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I was trying to get at with the smiling and like they had to have choreography. Like regular big bands that were full of men did not have to do that shit. They didn't have to choreograph shit. They didn't have to like smile when they play. They didn't have to do their hair nice. Like it was like a totally different thing. And so you're like a novelty. It's like you're a carnival act. You know what I mean? It's like people just don't, they're like, look at those girls. They can actually play.
Yeah. Like that's not enough.
Yeah. It's just not as much prestige and respect.
So she was having a conversation with somebody and she was explaining like how frustrated she was with what was going on. She didn't know that she was talking to a journalist when she was talking about what she was saying. So this journalist wrote for a magazine called Downbeat. And like she wakes up one day and there's an article called Give Girl Musicians a Break. And it had everything that she had said about the industry and like quoted her directly.
Oh, but that's not ethical. Unless they had permission.
No, she was like, I didn't know that was going to be in a magazine.
Oh my God.
She's like, I didn't know I was talking to a journalist.
That could like ruin your career.
Yes. She did ruffle some feathers. But it was mostly male musicians, but like her like fellow female musicians, because she was like, oh yeah, my friend so-and-so and my friend over here and my friend over here, that girl can play, this really good. And so her friends were like, oh, you said our name, like, like got some recognition. And the article gave her some weight. Like people knew who she was now because she kind of stirred the pot a little bit. One quote from the article is, in these times of national emergency, many of the star instrumentalists of the big name bands are being drafted. Instead of replacing them with what may be mediocre talent, Why not let some great girl musicians of this country take their place? Think about it, boys.
I like that.
Work stayed really steady for her. She eventually got hired to play at the Paramount, which I think is still there, isn't it, in New York?
Yeah, I think so.
She was playing like 4 to 5 shows a day.
I mean,
that's a lot.
Also, like, who's going to shows at like noon or whatever? What are you doing with your life?
Right. She even ended up playing with the NBC Orchestra. She got briefly engaged, but never married because it was kind of a whirlwind relationship. And then he got drafted.
Oh.
And right before they were going to get married. So he left before they could say I do. He was gone for 3 years. And by the time he came back, she was like,
no thanks.
I'm over it.
I'm done.
And like she wrote him letters and stuff, and she was kind of like, this isn't working. The day that he landed in France, her father died.
Oh no.
Yeah. And also this interview that I watched with her, she described like she was in turmoil because it was before she had decided to split that relationship up. So he's landing in France. I mean, everything's going on over there. Her dad dies. She was going to try to play an already scheduled show, but she was just so messed up, but she tried to do it anyway. So during her performance, because of all the stress, she fainted.
Oh, no.
But she didn't fall over. She just like slumped forward and like had her chin on her chest. And so the band leader is like waving at her because she's supposed to start. And she's not moving. So he's like, start, like, and so he like waves at the bass player and he's like, push her, like wake her up or something like that. So the bass drummer goes over and like shoves her shoulder and she wakes up and she just said she just started playing the drum. Like she realized what she was supposed to do and started playing the drums. And she ended up doing 5 shows that day just because she was like, the drums just like kept my head.
Yeah, I guess like it's like muscle memory.
Yeah, I don't think it was a good idea. She should have
taken some time. Yeah.
Like, if you're so stressed out that you're passing out.
I mean,
she probably didn't eat. She probably didn't sleep.
She probably stayed up crying. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's really stressful.
Viola ended up joining the Phil Spitanley, I think his name is. Spitanley? We'll go with Spitanley. An all-girl group called the Hour of Charm Orchestra.
That's cute. It's a cute name.
In the 1950s, which was first it started as a radio show and then it ended up as a TV show.
Oh.
Yeah. She stayed with this group for a decade. She was really happy. The band leader, Phil, was a friend of hers. Like they got along really well. It was like it was a good place to play.
So you said it was an all-female band?
Mm-hmm, but he was like the leader.
Oh, so he was
a band leader, but it was all women.
Okay. I was like, is Phil a woman's name? Way to bring it.
So then this is where like she kind of garnered the name of like they would be like Viola Smith, the fastest woman, fastest female drummer in the world. They would say that about her. She got pegged also as the female Gene Krupa. And
I don't think I know who that is.
He's like a really famous band leader, really famous drummer. And Viola said, "No, I'm not. Gene is the male Viola Smith," which I love that.
I mean, that's a thing that has happened and continues to happen.
It continues.
It's very upsetting.
It is. Well, she was at the height of her career. She played on the Ed Sullivan Show. She ended up playing with Ella Fitzgerald.
Wow.
Chick Webb, and she made the cover of Billboard magazine, which was a big fucking deal.
Yeah, that's a huge deal.
Yeah. She also performed at President Truman's inauguration.
Wow. With a band?
Yes. She took time to travel as well. She ended up, Phil, the band leader, wanted to go on vacation. So he told all the girls, all of you go on vacation for 2 months. Here you go.
2 months?
2 months. So.
Yeah, that's one hell of a vacation.
I know. I want 2 months.
Jesus.
She ended up going and traveling around Europe for those 2 months.
Well, that's cool.
She said something kind of interesting. Like she kind of stumbled over her words when she mentioned this. She's like, I traveled alone. Like it was okay. But like I got to stay at the best hotels and I got to have like the best ways to get around. She goes, but no one could come with me because nobody had the money that I had because of the gentleman that was paying for me. And she's like, well, yeah, this man, he helped her financially to pay for this trip. And she's like, yeah, I wanted to marry him, but he had a problem getting away from his wife. I was like,
So she was a mistress.
Yes.
Okay.
I loved how she said it. He has a problem
Getting away
from his wife.
Oh. Wow, that's bold. And
Yeah.
that was like said in the 50s?
Well, this is the interview when she's way older, and she was talking about this time where she traveled. And she's like, well, I had money because of this
man
gentleman that was paying for me.
I was a kept woman.
And she's like trying to say it in the most delicate way. And then she's like, this marriage, he had a problem getting away from his wife. And I was like, oh my God, girl.
Yeah, that's pretty scandalous. It feels scandalous anyway.
Yeah. She never did end up getting married ever, and nor does she have any kids. After leaving the Hour of Charm Orchestra, Viola started to lead her own band called Viola and Her 17 Drums. And from 1966...
Did she actually have 17 drums?
Of course she did. Why would she have it in the title?
Okay.
No, she had 5.
I was like, okay, that's an exaggeration, right?
From 1966 to 1970, she joined the Kit Kat Band.
I've heard of them.
They played with the Broadway production of Cabaret.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was like actually part of the play.
Yes.
And they would play live jazz. She said that this was probably the greatest time of her life.
Yeah, I mean, playing in a big band on Broadway during one of the best and most well-known Broadway shows of all time.
Of all time. The music, the fucking watching the show right in front of you.
Pinnacle.
Yes. She said the dancing, the lights. She said like one thing, like when they would stop and like have to like let the actors act, she would like look into the crowd and she could see like the first like 10 rows. She said you could just see like movie star. And she just loved that. She like tried to look and see like who was watching them in the audience. And I'll show you a little clip of the Kit Kat Band.
So you said she was born in 1912?
1912.
And that was filmed in 1966?
So she's got to be 50.
Yeah, she's in her 50s.
Yeah.
She looked real good for being like she was really like moving really well on the drums.
She spoke a lot about, she's like, I always got my sleep. You know, I didn't took care of myself, didn't, drugs, things like that. But she's like, 8 hours of sleep. 8 hours of sleep. She said like 5 times. I was like, weren't you just like genetics? She eventually left playing the drums after the Kit Kat Band. She was able to retire with the money that she earned. She said that she never wanted for $1 her whole life and considered herself extremely lucky for that.
Yeah.
That's not everybody's story.
Especially as a musician.
Yeah. And, she had a leg up because her parents had money.
Yep.
She was able to have parents that encouraged her. She didn't have pushback. She also said, like, in one of the interviews, they asked her, like, did the men, like, did they treat you very badly? Was it really, really horrible? She's like, well, it wasn't without its issues. She's like, but it was actually, like, fairly good. She's like, I had a good experience. And she was just like, people ask me that all the time. And she goes, I feel like almost, like, bad by saying no. Like, it wasn't as horrible as it was for other people.
Yeah. That's like I said that Melba wouldn't talk about it.
Yeah.
But like there had been absolutely at least
Horrendous.
1 or 2 times when she was sexually assaulted.
Yeah. Viola ended up moving to Costa Mesa, California. She ended up going to live on a commune. I know.
What a wild ride.
And it was called the Peacemakers. And it was mostly all older women.
That's a lesbian commune. I already was wondering.
She ran a craft shop. They like would make goods and then they would sell them through the craft shop.
This is very lesbian.
It's very lesbian.
I'm not saying she was lesbian, but I'm not saying she was lesbian.
She also started to treat teach drum lessons. On her 100th birthday
Oh my God, she gets to 100.
in 2012, she was featured on the front page of Zildjian Symbols website.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and she was like shocked because they were like featuring her as a pioneer, and she's like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "I just played the drums," and they're like, "No, you kind of did a lot, girl."
I mean, she did do a lot.
Yeah, and she just said like she never thought of herself as that. She was very honored that people were thinking of her like that. Also, she didn't have internet, so she had to go look on like someone else's computer.
Of course, she's 100 years old.
And so she was like, "Oh wow!" Like she could see like people really appreciated. People knew who she was, and she didn't know that. She said she never felt like playing the drums was work. And she goes, "I feel like I haven't worked, a day in my life. But if you say that drumming is working, then I've worked all my life."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I don't think most people feel that way about their jobs.
No, they don't. She ended up living to 107.
Oh my God.
I know. And she said, "Maybe it's the drums that have kept me spry, or the wine, or going to the casino."
So that means she must have lasted till 2019.
2020.
Wow.
107. The last year of her life, she was suffering from Alzheimer's. They said that when people would come to visit, she would give them a copy of a book called Women Drummers, and she would ask people to read it to her.
Oh,
That was very sweet.
That's sweet, but also there's some serious sadness there. It's pretty bittersweet.
Yes. She ended up dying October 21st of 2020 in her home. She had no kids, no surviving family members at the moment.
Did she die of COVID or Alzheimer's?
It said complications from Alzheimer's.
Okay.
Yeah. Which
I was
she's
like,
107.
Because October 2020 was like, that was bad. That's when I got it.
Yeah.
And it was the OG strain and it'll kill you.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Maybe. It didn't say that she did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it said complications of Alzheimer's, that's what it was. They would have said it was COVID.
Yeah. So that's the story of Viola.
That's really incredible. I didn't know her, and I'm really glad that I do now. That's like a big part of music history.
Yeah. And it's one of the articles was like the first pioneering woman drumming I'd never heard of.
Perfect for our show.
Perfect for our show. The interview that I kept referring to was a project called the Women of Rock Oral History Project.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I already am into that.
And the interviewer's name was Tanya Pearson. Viola it was about an hour-long interview. And there was like multiple people in the room. And at the very end, they're like, "Do you have anything to like say for musicians, Viola?" And she's like, "I think I said everything." Like she was like, "I'm done. I've been talking for like an hour." And then she's like, "Do any of you play the drums?" And they're like, I do. And she's like, "Oh," she got all like lit up and like excited. But yeah, that was a really awesome interview. Downbeat Magazine, an article called Pioneering Drummer Viola Smith by Cray McCree, which is a very funny name. The New York Times had an article, Viola Smith, Fastest Girl Drummer in the World by Alex Vadukul. And Tom Tom Magazine, Celebrating the Life and Legacy of Pioneer Drummer Viola Smith by Rebecca DeRosa.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's a neat story.
Yeah, someday I feel like we should do a compilation where we like put together all of the musicians or something, like, because Melba obviously would have been a contemporary of Viola.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really remember her story very well because it was a very compelling story be like, wow, like to be a musician in that time, to be around it, like not just a musician, but being a musician in that specific genre, which was so male dominated.
Yes.
And can be quite chauvinist.
Yes. And like you said, the bar was so much higher for them.
Yeah. And to have made a name says so much more about who they were and how talented. So that's cool. Thank you for introducing me to Viola.
Awesome.
Also, I love those clips.
Yes, those were really fun.
They're so fun.
I would like to find more of the Kit Kat band.
Yeah, that's like written into the play, right? Into
It
Cabaret.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's why I know it.
Well, we'd like to thank our editor, Lucas McIntyre.
Thank you, Lucas.
And also like to thank Jennifer Finch of L7 for giving us our wonderful theme music.
And also thank you for listening to us. And if you want to become a Patreon subscriber and listen to our cool ass bonus content with our listeners who are badasses, you should do so. Patreon.com/ I think IDK her podcast. If you Google it, you'll find it. It's on our website too.
Alrighty, till next time, folks.
See you later.